On this episode of What's Going On with Shipping, we have a trans-Pacific traffic jam heading into Southern California. Not a real big surprise. Hi, I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. I'm the chair of the Department of History, Criminal Justice, and Political Science at Campbell University in North Carolina, former merchant mariner and adjunct instructor in merchant marine policy at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Okay, so a lot of traffic heading into Southern California right now, and this press conference was held today in the port of LA, talking about the fact that the number of ships at anchor off the port is down. And again, if you want to get me going on something, it's this topic right here. Listen, you are diverting ships out to a holding area off the coast of Southern California. Fine, say that. Don't guise the fact that you are succeeding in getting down the number of vessels and clearing the port when that's not what you're doing. So let's go to this story. So Sam Dean, a business reporter for the LA Times, posted this on his Twitter page, and I hadn't seen the press conference yet. I've been looking for it, but I have not seen it come out yet. Excuse me. But LA Mayor Garcetti and Labor Secretary Marty Walsh was in the port of LA today. Excuse me, can't talk today. And here you have a series of tweets by Sam Dean talking about it. Obviously, at one point, Mayor Garcetti was asked about the port logjam, and his response back is, this is about private sector inefficiencies. The city is just a landlord of the port, doesn't operate the cranes, ships, logistics, etc. Okay, hang on. Go to that video that I did on the CGM, Benjamin Franklin coming in. And Garcetti was owning the port, how we are ready and able to handle container ships in the port of LA in 2015. Now, yes, LA manages the port. They have tenants, but they do have some authority here. They can't sit there and back away from this, especially when they're the ones front and center taking all the attention from this. And oh, by the way, just got a $5 billion loan from the Biden administration for improvements. So don't play like, oh, this is not us. This is the port operators and the terminals and the ship carriers. So you don't get a chance to play that. Then this is the one that caught me right here. Port Director Gene Soroka, and I get on Gene a lot. Now let me be clear. I think Gene is handling a job that's absolutely unparalleled right now in the history of movement of cargo through the United States. But my issue here is be upfront and be honest. Don't spin everything so it makes like you're doing nothing wrong or there's an issue here. Right here, since we instituted a penalty for long aging containers, the number of ships at anchor has reduced 40% in 4 weeks. What does one have to do with the other? Because you imposed a fine, which, by the way, they've canceled now 4 times, postponed it 4 times. It's supposed to start on November 15th, and then it went to the 20-something, 22nd, I think it was, then the 29th. Now it's into December. But anyway, how does that deal with the number of ships that have been reduced 40% in 4 weeks? And we have not collected a nickel of the penalty yet, said the initiative is working. Okay. I can't even process that statement right there. I have massive problems with it. We're going to come back to it. But this is the story that also caught me. This is Frank Coles, who's a big advocate in the industry for a long time. Absolutely just huge in the shipping industry in a variety of different ways. But he's gotten out of it, and he's been writing op-eds and doing a lot for the plight of mariners, particularly during COVID. And this is an op-ed that just came out on G Captain. Out of sight means out of mind. And he talks about the fact that he was sailing between South Carolina and Key West, sailed past the port of Savannah. And off the port of Savannah, here's Savannah right here on marine traffic, there are a good chunk of vessels sitting there off Savannah, and they're not too terribly far off the port, maybe 10, 20 miles off port and at anchor, sitting there. And Frank goes on to talk about the fact that yet in California, they've come up with this idea that ships drift 150 miles offshore. I can't quite determine who actually came up with this idea. I did. PMSA, the PMA, and the Marine Exchange, who we'll come back to in a second. Maybe that's by design because it's about as dumb as anything in maritime operations this year. Let me requote that for a second. Maybe that's by design because it's about as dumb as anything in marine operations this year. Personally, I don't see the ships as the issue in the supply chain discussion. It seems clear to me the bottleneck is in the port and clearance into the hinterland. If it was the ships, you could do what they do in Hong Kong, use barges to offload containers, but that would create another set of labor union bottlenecks. So let's move the ships out of sight. People ashore won't see them, and the authorities won't see them. The press can't see them to photograph them. Out of sight means out of mind. All too familiar feeling for a seafarer. So now you are out of cell phone range, out of medical support range, drifting with the need to keep your engines on short notice. Yet another attack on human rights and seafarers' ability to have some element of normalcy. Wow. I think Frank hits it right square on the head right there. And while you'll see reports come out, and this one just came out on GCAP 2, Reuters story about the labor secretary's visit to the top West Coast ports as labor talks loom. By the way, they had the first round of these labor negotiations with the ILWU, the International Longshoremen and Warehouse Union, and it collapsed. It didn't go anywhere, which is what you kind of expect the first round to go. But in this report, and if you look at the tweets that came out from the labor secretary's office, one of the things that you'll see is that Marty Walsh is talking about the improvements that are going on in the Port of LA, but again, spinning the facts quite a bit here. At the same time, we've got the third blog out from the White House on tracking of success. And I'm going to say I'm pleasantly shocked. I expected to see in here a comment about ships at anchor. There's no comment about that in here at all, which really shocks me about it. But it actually seemed to be a pretty square assessment. I think they know people are looking at this and reading it. They're talking about the throughput of containers through the port of LA and Long Beach. I'm going to come back to that in a second. They're talking about dwelling containers, which, 75,000 containers. They're down 41%, yet empties are up through the roof. As a matter of fact, I think the last report I saw from LA was 77,000 containers. That's just in LA terminals right now sitting there. And this report basically paints a pretty good picture across the board, yet you still have consistent issues with dwell. They're talking about dwelling 9 days or more, but we're seeing containers less than 9 days going up. And again, if you look at those dwell reports from LA and Long Beach, they're coming down. They're down from where they were on November 1st, but nowhere near where they need to be to get forward. And they talk about a lot of other things that are being done, small efforts by CMCGM, efforts by the Department of Transportation to waive issues with pier passes and all, the Federal Maritime Commission waiving pier passes, the Department of Transportation on truck drivers' hours. So we're seeing a lot of issues being kind of played here. And that's good. It's going to take a series of small issues to rectify this. But when you get to the Port of LA, this is the issue. This is their new signal report came out. This is Tuesday's report. One of the things to look at is week 48. They're talking about a 100% increase over the previous week. Again, I think they slowed down like crazy on Thanksgiving week. And again, that's not historical. If you look at the historical chart right down here, you'll see where week 47 falls, and you see how much lower it is than in the previous year. And if you go back other years, you'll see the same thing here. They're trying to get themselves basically caught up. What gets me about this report, and I keep saying it about this report, is that LA is trying to guise this issue. They're talking about now 18 vessels at anchor with a current anchor time of 20 days. Yet what they're doing is slowly whittling away the anchorages, and the drift area is slowly going away. And they're putting these vessels 150 miles to 300 miles off the coast. And again, they know they're there. They know they're there, but they're not including them here for that reason. If you go to the wave report, this is Long Beach's report, same kind of information we're getting here. Moving containers, obviously, but at Long Beach is better, I think, at tracking the vessels. You'll see them listing their vessels out at drift, who's there, who's coming in. And what I want to do is show you the full report that's done by the Marine Exchange. Now, the Marine Exchange does a daily tweet where they list the number of ships, but on Facebook, they do a report that is much more extensive. And I actually think it's a much better kind of detailed report. So this right here is the letter that came out on November 11th, I believe it was. Yep, from the PMSA and the PMA and the Marine Exchange. And what they're talking about here is the establishment of the anchorages off the port right here. And what you're seeing right here is what they're talking about. They go through the process here, but one of the things I want to highlight is this right here. Vessels will operate outside the new boundaries known as the Safety and Air Quality Area, designated by the Marine Exchange of Southern California to limit the number of container vessels near the port complex. While awaiting a berth, eastbound vessels must remain 150 miles west of Southern California, while northbound, southbound vessels must remain 50 miles from California and Mexico. Vessels can come into harbor for fuel, crew changes, and regular ship business per normal procedures. Goes down here. A safe, secure, efficient, reliable, and environmentally sound marine transportation system is essential to our economy. That's why the new system is so vital, said Marine Exchange of Southern California Executive Director Captain James Kipling Lutit, who used to be a captain in the U.S. Coast Guard. And this report and this letter right here actually became the subject of a little bit of a conversation I had with Kip, the captain, here on their Facebook page, where this is posted. I actually queried a post to him, which I'm happy to show you right here. Here it is right here. I basically asked him about moving the ships out to sea here, and basically arguing that, okay, well, you're moving the ships out to sea here, but, you know, that may be important for the air, but you are forcing ships to operate their engines more to maintain their position. You're also exposing them by keeping them out to sea. And then I included my video that basically talked about that. And I got an exchange back from him. You see it right there, JKL, that's him. By the way, there's an Urban Dictionary meaning for JKL, which I wasn't sure about. I had to make sure that was his initials. But the ocean carrier industry developed this plan on its own and determined it would be safe and effective. Now, I got to disagree with that. Okay, his name is all over it. I mean, I just quoted him in the letter. So he can't tell me that this is the ocean carrier industry developing this. And by the way, it's not the ocean carrier industry. It's the PMSA and the PMA doing it. They're doing that again for, I would argue, coverage, but I'm not going to get into this argument again. But, you know, if the ocean carriers wanted to do this, they could have easily have done it. They could have easily have sent the vessels off. But now they're waiting to get this official document from the Marine Exchange and these two organizations that control basically the ports, the labor, the unions, the representatives on the West Coast. These are the slides put out by the Marine Exchange. And one of the things you see right here is they're showing some significant issues. I'm going to take myself off the screen so we can see the whole thing. And so this is the loitering ship count inside the 40 miles of LA and Long Beach. And you'll see back in 16 November, they were showing 51 ships, container ships loitering. Now on 29 November, they're down to 19. Drop of 32 container ships, 63% loitering within 40 miles. And this is within 2 weeks of the new queuing system. Again, okay, that's true. And all that's true because they're just measuring within 40 miles. Here's their graphs that they've been doing way back since 1 January of 2019. And one of the things you see here are, for example, ships that are at anchor, ships that are in the port, and then ships that are in kind of the drift area right here. So you see right here, the peak backup record, 179 vessels of all types on 16 November. Again, go back to when all this was happening. This is when they were hitting the max vessels right here with 81 ships at anchor and loitering and 57 vessels on berth. And then you see that precipitous drop off right there. And again, they are clear about this. They're not arguing that they're trying to hide this, but it's how they count these numbers. And then here's just container ships, just looking at container ships. Port of LA and Long Beach deal with bulkers and passenger liners and a few other vessels. This is the slide that I really want you to see here because this is their monitoring of the vessels off the coast. So here's the safety air quality area that they established off the coast, this little lined little area right here. And the vessels are asked to stay outside of this area, but look at the number of vessels that are off here. And then if you look on this lower left chart here, you'll see there's a clump of vessels coming in the mid-central Pacific right now around the Hawaiian Islands and coming down from the north. That's the straighter route. That's the Great Circle route. They're coming down. But then a whole slew of new vessels leaving the Far East right now, heading this way. Now, those vessels should all be slow steaming, should have slowed down, should not be steaming as fast as they need to. They don't have to race anymore to LA and Long Beach to get online. However, they're still on the way. And more importantly, all these vessels need to be included in some sort of count. They're right now not. And I think that's the big disservice that's going on. The Marine Exchange breaks this down even further. They go and look at the anchorages off LA and Long Beach. They look at the ships that are in the anchorages, those in the drift areas off there. It's a pretty comprehensive report. It come out, they do this one about every week or so, and you can find it on Facebook. Now, one of the problems I have with this whole system is, I go back to what Frank Cole said, is it really disregards the mariners. So I went on the marine traffic and I pulled up basically 2 vessels that I found on here that I thought would be good examples to look at here. I went to the port of LA and I went to the port of Long Beach, and I pulled up their basically arrival vessels, and I pulled the vessel which had the longest arrival time. So right here, Hyundai Platinum, again, not on the LA list at all. She is right now sailing. She is actually off the port of San Francisco. If you come over here, sorry, I'm trying to get this thing to drop right here. Get that to drop right there. There we go. So she's right here off the port. Here's San Francisco up here. LA Long Beach is way down here. She's hanging off here right now, just burning time. She's come out of Tacoma on November 18th. This is November 30th. We're filming this. She is not due in. Again, this is November 30th. She's not due until December 28th. She has a month of sitting off the coast. A month for her crew to sit off the coast, trolling around, going back and forth and drifting with the Humboldt and the California current. And this is the vessel I found really at the far extreme right now. Come over here. Here's Long Beach. Here's the ONE Crane. ONE Crane is doing the Long Beach on December 26th. I actually had a Zim vessel earlier that I found. I couldn't pull it back up again. It's not due until the new year. But the ONE Crane, this is a substantial size vessel, by the way, out of Yanatan, sailed on November 3rd. She's not going to come in till December 26th. You're talking almost 2 months at sea for this crew. And right now, there she is. She's south of LA and Long Beach. She's off the Baja Peninsula, just drifting 0.6 knots. She'll keep drifting southward. And, you know, I go back to this issue. Again, I don't want to criticize LA and Long Beach. They're doing an inhuman job of trying to move goods and containers off the port. But I think we're being disingenuous when we sit there and say, listen, you know, there's a small number of vessels at anchor off the port. And when Gene Soroka gets out and says, we've reduced the number of ships at anchorage by 40%, well, okay. You know, that's great. But how are you measuring that? Because you have a huge fleet of vessels that are off in this trans-Pacific logjam now that's having problems. You know, it's like going into your parking lot in LA and sitting there saying, well, you know, I moved cars off the parking lot, but now they're jammed on the I-5 or the 10, you know, or the 101. It doesn't do the same thing. And so I think we got to be honest about this. And I think Frank Cole's mention about the plight of the mariners is an important one. We tend not to think about this. Top 5 nationalities of mariners: Filipino, Russian, Indian, Chinese, Indonesian. And again, we tend not to care about who hauls our goods. And as a former mariner, I can tell you, I sailed back in the 90s. It was a while ago. But, you know, we would rush in along the coast, try to get radio signals, get TV signals so you can see it. Guys today on ships, and it's guys and women, excuse me, they want to come in. They want to get, you know, cell phone up. They want to get the internet. They want to do what they can. And yet now you're making them sit this far off the coast in current, and you're actually risking the vessels being that far out at sea. The crews are going to get complacent. They're going to get basically not at the top form, sitting there drifting out for a month or two, as you saw from these vessels. And I think you're just asking for an accident to happen. I'm hoping it's not. I hope there's no accident whatsoever. But the question becomes, if it does happen, then who's going to bear the responsibility for that? And again, you're talking about reducing the number of vessels off a port. You're not reducing it when you're just sending them out of sight and out of mind, to quote Frank Coles. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, Please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos when they come out. Leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, share it across social media. And if you can, please contribute to my Patreon page. That money goes to getting me a razor so I can clean up. Coming in from late at night from some training and work with my local fire department. But if you can, please contribute to the page. Until our next video, Sal, signing off.